Hey guys, Chro here. I wanted to get a short video out today discussing the changes to Junkrat, kind of just clear up some misconceptions and misnomers about this change and the hero in general. And for the people not looking to watch the whole video, the quick and dirty, this change is more of a rework than anything else. For what Junkrat gains, he loses a lot and is going to cause a completely different style of play from what you're currently used to with Junkrat. Now for the details on that, we'll start looking at the patch notes. The impact damage was increased from 40 to 90. That's an increase of 50 damage, while his explosion damage was reduced from 80 to 60. This would put his damage at a whopping 150. But the biggest change is that they added Falloff to the impact damage. While the explosive damage will stay the same at all ranges, the impact damage will drop down to 20%, which is 18 damage. I put up a damage sheet so that we can clearly see the damage at each range. I'll keep this on screen during the video today while we look at a couple maps and see what the damage drop-off really feels like in the game. An important thing to note is that 15 to 25 meters, it happens a lot sooner than people think, and a damage range of 10 meters actually happens quite quickly. Base movement speed in Overwatch is 5.5 meters a second, so if you run for 1 second, you'll be actually reducing Junkrat's damage from 150 down to 114, which technically would be a nerf compared to live. While the knockback amount has been reduced, that's not really a major point of this video. Now, before we go real hard into any numbers, I would like to briefly discuss Junkrat as a hero and kind of what they're trying to turn him into. With the changes suggested, they're really turning Junkrat into a close-range machine. And even more so than close range, it's really making him incredibly strong indoors at the sacrifice of pretty much anything at mid to long range. I usually define short range as 0 to 15 meters, 15 to 30 is mid-range, and then beyond 30 is all long range. Junkrat's damage at 120 with the current changes, as you can see in the damage chart, it'll be around 19 to 20 meters for him to retain his current 120 damage. Anything further than 19 meters, we can consider a nerf. Anything before 19 meters, we consider a buff to damage. But now as the character from an archetype perspective, and if we're not looking at balance or thinking about just the numbers right now, the idea of creating Junkrat as a close-range hero is quite odd, and this is because he lacks the tools that other close-range heroes have. We can look at Doomfist, Mei, Genji, Reaper. All of these heroes have some way to mitigate distance. Some have a teleport, some move very quickly. In the case of Mei's instance, or Symmetra's, is they have abilities that allow them to traverse distance or block that distance, so they don't get shot the whole way. The other thing most of these close-range heroes have is some sort of damage mitigation on top of their movement. So we have Ice Block, we have Wraith Form, we also have Life Leech from Reaper, Doomfist gets shields back. So all these heroes have some way to sustain when in a close-range battle. Now Junkrat has neither of these. So we're running into the Bastion problem, where we have an archetype where we're trying to say, well, how much can we take away and how much can we give to make this hero an incredibly strong specialist? In Bastion's case, it was how much mobility can we take away and how much damage can we give him before the hero doesn't feel balanced. Overwatch 2 has proved that Bastion's concept was kind of flawed. There was no amount of power you could give a hero with no mobility. That could be the case with Junkrat and how he's going forward. How much power can you give to a close-range hero without giving them any of the defensibility or mobility that other heroes have in the class? 150 damage is incredibly powerful, but these numbers aren't that strange to Overwatch. If we look at this damage chart I've made, we can see Junkrat doing 150 max damage puts his DPS without reload at 231. Now this is quite high, but it still puts him below Bastion, Reaper, and Tracer. The live version, we can see that he's still at 185, which is pretty significant. But you can see with the Junkrat changes outside of 25 meters, it puts him pretty low. And if we want to take into account with reloading, we really start seeing some numbers show through. Junkrat at 150 max damage still does less damage as compared to Hanzo, Zarya, Reaper, Symmetra, and Bastion. If we look at the current live settings, Junkrat doesn't do that much more damage when accounting for reload. Here I'll highlight, within 10 to 15 damage, we can see a lot of the other heroes, including Echo, Soldier, Baptiste. All of these heroes are within 8 or so damage per second when compared with Junkrat. The kicker with all of these is while Junkrat doesn't suffer fall-off damage, most of the other classes here have Headshot, which can double their damage. Next, we need to look at the fall-off damage. From what I've figured out so far, fall-off damage is based on how far the grenade travels. It is not where Junkrat is when the target takes damage. To look at how the fall-off damage is done, I've made a workshop mode that I'll put on screen. What this does is it simply draws a straight line from the character to its target. I've set it up in the practice range to show that 10 meters is 10 meters and that the workshop is working properly. Next, we're going to see one of the biggest issues with Junkrat's fall-off. It tracks how far the grenade has moved. Since Junkrat shoots in an arc, this actually increases Junkrat's fall-off quicker than normal. This means if we're trying to fight a Tracer and we shoot a little bit too high but still hit Tracer, we won't kill her. This means Junkrat's fall-off of 15 meters is more like 13 to 14 when used in an actual game. What this also means is that any ricochets will also add to that distance. So if you bounce a grenade on the ground, you can see here it won't kill a Tracer when she would normally die within 15 meters. So here we are within 12 meters and we one-shot a Tracer. As we ricochet over the Tracer and come back, the grenade travels more than 50 meters and lethal damage is not dealt. This removes a lot of tech from Junkrat. While ricochets can be difficult to land, you can land them with enough skill. But because ricochets quickly add distance, this will greatly increase the fall-off damage Junkrat receives. This also applies when you shoot a grenade straight up. So any type of artillery shot, any type of long-distance attack will automatically go down to its minimum damage of 78. The strange part about this is that Junkrat is known for having a high ground presence. But as we can see on Eichenwald, when you take the high ground, whenever you shoot at the ground, you're almost always getting minimum damage. This is true on points like King Chro Point 3, and really any time Junkrat takes a high ground. It is now extremely disadvantageous for Junkrat to take the high ground in most situations. The other point about this is that 19 meters where Junkrat breaks even is not very far, and most positions behind the tank will be beyond 19 meters. Here on Ilios, we can see Junkrat's strongest point, and from his normal attacks from a very conservative positioning, he's almost always at minimum damage at this point. So even in situations where he was considered to be a strong, viable pick, he is now doing close to minimum damage. It's also important to note that 78 damage means that you cannot combo anyone longer than 25 meters, which can happen. This also doesn't account for trap targets. Anyone who's trapped, if they're farther than more than about 18 to 19 meters away, you won't be able to kill them. And I think my biggest issue with this change is that it just lowers his options and creativity. It no longer rewards high ground and ricochets. It also feels so extreme of a change that you will have to play a flank rat. And while there will be extreme damage with this and there can be extreme success, Junkrat's ability to navigate to close range is going to be extremely difficult. Not only that, but he's going to have to try to survive without any defensive abilities when in a brawl. Another note is that any type of shot into the air is probably going to be reduced damage. This means any type of air shot, when combined with a concussive mine, won't kill. While I'm hesitant to call this a buff or a nerf, it really feels like this is a complete rework, as it removes most of Junkrat's mid to long range game and puts it all in close range. You'll now play Junkrat in a bit of a different way. While you could play that way now and see success that most top level Junkrats do, it's now the only way to play the hero. I will say that this iteration of Junkrat could work if they increase the start of the fall-off damage from 15 to 20 or 25 meters and allow it to go out to 30 or 35 meters. There are other solutions to this problem as well. If the idea is to increase the damage she deals to tanks, you could just provide a bonus to shields and armor, much like a Torvald Junkrat, or explosion damage could deal bonus damage to armor and shields. One of the more complicated ones, and I don't know how you would implement it visually, but if Junkrat hits a character, he would do increased damage against that character the more he hit them for like a set duration. So let's say you get hit by Junkrat, you take 20% more damage from him for a period of, let's say, 2 to 3 seconds. And this would kind of solve the extra damage you're looking to get on bigger targets while still saving the smaller targets. What would you have to take away from Junkrat to give him this buff? I'm not exactly sure, but I think there's a couple ways you go about this in a little bit cleaner of a method that still leaves him other tools available to him and doesn't hard lock him into a single way to play. Thanks everyone for watching. This is actually one of the first videos I kind of heavily edited, so I apologize for the quality, but I do have the full stream where we go over all these changes and all of the details in greater detail linked below. If you enjoyed this content or wish to talk more about Junkrat and game design in general, you can find me at twitch.tv/ProLikeChro. I stream Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Central to midnight. Thank you again.